I'm very much a fan of say it as you play it. So I would look at this and I would go, EF. Well, we know that's eggs fried or jaws, but I'm going to miss this fret. I'm going to ignore it for now. I'll come back to it in a moment. Then this is the lonely G here. Now, if you want to, you could tie it into the gift of the gab, which is G, A, B. Just use those three there as your landmarks, G, A, B. So you could use those there, but I'm just using this as lonely G. And the cool thing about this is the more ways you have of understanding where something is, the easier it is for you to get to it. Because if one way doesn't work, then you can think of it another way and then you get there. Okay, so look, there's G. So what I've got to do is I've got to go up a step to get to this here. And now all I do is I remember that it goes step and half step because I've got A, B, C. So I've got A, B, C. And I know right next to it I've got D, E, F. Wonderful, okay? Now I could use BEAD, B, E, A, D. We know that from Battle Ends and Down Goes Charles's Father, because when we look at the fretboard, we don't want to just learn it up this way. We want to learn it that way. We want to learn it from the ceiling to the floor, from the floor to the ceiling. We want to learn it on all the angles of the compass, because this is the way we look at the fretboard. So we go A, B, C. Say it as you play it. A, B, C. D, E, F. A, B, C, D, E, F. Now, like I said, I could come at it from the bead, B, E, A, and I know I've got another A here. But what I could also use is the E-shaped octave. There's the E-shaped octave jumping over from one string pair, from the E and A string pair, into the D and G string pair, and now I get A, B, C, D, E, F. Now, I know that this area tends to be a fuzzy sort of area for knowing the notes that students suffer from. So if we have something like this to help us, you could even use BEAD here to help you to think to yourself, yeah, so we've got B, C, A, B, C, D, E, F. We could play that there like that. D, E, F, G, lonely G, A, B, C. We could use this just to help you to find your way around these notes by using BEAD to help you as a starting point, much like you might do with your head note if you were down here and you think to yourself E, F, G, E, F, G, B, C, D. Yeah, so you might know some of your notes because that's where people tend to learn the notes first, in the sort of open position, first 3 frets. Yes, and then you move up. But this way, we're going to take it all over the shop. So here, we have another string pair here. And this is on the A and the D string. We get A, B, C, D, E, F. So you can see we're still getting that same shape, that step, half step. Look, A, bacon crispy. D, eggs fried. A, bacon crispy. D, eggs fried. A, bacon crispy. D, eggs fried. Onto this string pair, I just jumped over using my caged octaves. E-shaped octave into a D-shaped octave. Yeah? One of the first things that I spotted out before I did this was this little hot spot. F, A, D. So there. A, B, C. D, E, F. Now once we've got that, then we know that if we go up a whole step, yes, A, B, C, D, E, F, D, E, F, and then we know that G is going to be here because we go D, E, F. We know that we've got the lonely G, that there's no note next to it, it's on its own. G, then we know that we're going to have A, B, C here. There's the G. Okay, so we have that way of putting all those patterns together there, guys. Now, once we get those down, then we need to understand that. Let's look at the G, the lonely G. Let's bridge something in here for the lonely G, right? Okay, so we're going to build him a bridge to get across here now by filling in what's going on in the middle here. So we've got G here and we've got A here. Remember, this is going up, like I showed you in my Lady Dianagram here. This is up. When the note goes up, that's when it becomes sharp, okay? When it goes down, it becomes flat. Okay, so that's what we're doing here. So we can fill those in, but we don't want to think of them as part of the same thing as this. I see it all the time in Facebook groups where people say, "Oh yeah, you just learn one string, just learn one string going E, F, F sharp, da da da, and everything else." And I see so many people get confused of this. Yes, so what we do is we build up this story and something, these three little chunks that we can grab onto, and then you say to yourself, "Okay, so that's a G. If I move this up, I'm going up in pitch. Therefore, I'm making the note sharp. So that's a G." This is a G sharp then. Oh, wonderful. Okay. Now there is a problem because if I start on the A and I go down, then I'm making the note flat. So this is an A and I move it down a half step, I get an A flat. So which one is it? Is it an A flat or is it a G sharp? Well, that is dependent on which key you are in, and that's the way we want to think about it. In fact, I have two ways of seeing the notes on here. I either think of them as in the key or as tonics for the key. So we do that on all of these strings as well. So this is an F. So if we come up, remember this is sharpened. So if we take that F and we move it up a half step, what do we get, guys? What we can do is we can look at it the other way. So remember this was the G here. If we lower it as well, then that means it's becoming flat. So this is what's called an enharmonic equivalent. The harmony means it sounds the same. It's got two different names, two different labels. So we can think of it as being G flat or we can think of it as being F sharp. So they're one and the same. And this is where a lot of the confusion comes from because people are like, hang on, is it an F sharp? Or sometimes people think it's a flat. Does that mean it's minor? This is such a common question that people hear that it's flat because they've heard that the minor has a flat third and then they start to associate it. Those things are not coupled in any way. Those are two different ideas completely. We use alphabet letters with sharps and flats for naming the notes. That's what we're doing there, and we're using those to name the root notes for chords, for thirds, fifths, and all that sort of stuff. We tie those in parallel for tonics, keys, and stuff. But when we use a flat third, that's about a chord structure. So do not get them mixed up. And if I just come over here, what you are looking at here is essentially the notes from C major and A minor. Or if you want to think about it, this map is essentially the white keys on the piano. Those natural notes, that's the white keys on the piano. So if we put the sharps and the flats in, those are the black keys on the piano. But the thing about the keyboard is everything's on one layer. If you think about it, if we take each of these notes, we would have only one keyboard. The guitar is essentially 6 linear keyboards all in a row. This is what I say. I think of the fretboard as being in the key of C major. Once you understand the key of C major, you can understand all the other 11 keys, okay? Because the basic thing is everything transposes, guys. When we transpose, then what happens is we start to bring in the sharps and the flats, and that changes things, but we're always going to get these structures. That's what your capo does. That's what your bar chords do. This is why your shape stays the same. When you take an E-shaped bar chord, you're keeping the shape the same. There's an F sharp chord. But if I move it up here, the shape hasn't changed. Yeah, I've just transposed the shape. And that's essentially what's going on here, guys, because if you think about it, the bar is really just a movable head note, just like a capo. So it's the same principle. So we think of the guitar as being in C major. It's just the easiest way around it. And that's going to make sense when it comes to playing chords, scales, and arpeggios as well.